So here's the question. Much of the trucking industry is based on small businesses, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 carriers in terms, I should say 5, 6, 7 trucks and the like, and sometimes run by a husband who's out on the road driving. The wife is at home taking care of the books and the like, and running the business operation. Dan Varroney joins us with Real Clear Politics. He's written a very interesting article about why small business matters more as Iran drives costs higher. Dan, good to have you along with us. Thanks so much.
It is thrilling to be with you. I think truckers are awesome, and they make this country go every day.
Dan, you argue that small businesses matter even more in this moment because you say this economic cycle that we're in is different. In what way is it different from the disruptions of COVID from 5 years ago? How is it different?
Well, because this is an energy shock. And what the energy shock does, so energy, especially diesel fuel, think of diesel fuel as the main artery that brings blood from one part of our body to another. And when there's an energy shock, the price of that diesel gets extremely high. It elevates costs and prices for all of us. Things like COVID didn't necessarily elevate costs and prices per se, but this does elevate costs and prices in a way that the American people are not accustomed.
Are we going to see next month when the consumer price index and the producer price index numbers come out, are we going to see inflation starting to really ramp up again?
So I expect those numbers to increase without a doubt, the CPI and the PPI. But here's the one thing that I'm factoring in all of my thinking, that once the war with Iran concludes, we'll see regular gasoline prices down in 2 to 3 weeks, and we'll see diesel fuel prices drop over 6 to 12 weeks.
But that still means that we're going to be running for a good chunk of the spring and maybe into the summer with gas probably $3.90, $3.70 a gallon, and diesel probably hanging around $5 a gallon.
Without a doubt. So the challenge, as you know and as your listeners know, is that the diesel blend is more complex, and because it's more complex, it takes longer, it's more expensive to make. And usually the way things go in cycle is that that more expensive diesel has got to be utilized before the lesser priced diesel is brought in.
Yeah, and we also
gasoline, but gasoline is easier to make.
Yeah, gasoline is much easier to refine, and we don't have a lot of refining capability for diesel in this country. We buy a lot of it from overseas, don't we? And we refine it from overseas and then bring it here.
We do. We need more refining capacity. The administration recently approved a new refinery for the Southeast. However, I don't know how long, Dan, that's going to take to get online. It could be months, could be a year.
Well, yeah, and then we have refineries down in Texas in some cases that are 99, 100 years old. I mean, much of our refining capacity in this country is really old.
It is, and not only is it really old, I want to talk about another complication. The other complication is that our regulatory structure, our regulatory compliance structure, is as ancient as time, and it needs to be streamlined. The Trump administration has a mandate of streamlining regulations significantly. But in order, on the other side of that, to get more refineries built, there must be streamlining and permitting. If not, we're going to be tied up for years in getting new refineries.
You had mentioned, as I was looking over some of my notes, you had said that the war is going to have a big impact on Main Street. So let's go to Main Street America. Let's go to Cedar Rapids, Iowa. It is the beginning of the farm season. The weather's getting warmer. The farmers are out there with their John Deeres and their Caterpillars doing their thing. And guess what? The price of fertilizer, which is what they're starting to put down now, has just gone up by 25-30%.
You're exactly right on the Main Street portion. So farmers clearly are taking a big brunt of the price shock coming out of the Iran war. So in addition to that, so you've got the farmers, then you've got Clearly the truckers, because they are paying a lot more at the pump for their diesel fuel. They can't afford to absorb all those costs, so they're going to rightfully pass those costs on to retailers, to the food stores, to the plumbing supply stores, and so on and so forth. So what you have is you've got a magnifier effect, clearly from the farm to the table, and clearly from the factory floor to the customer who buys it in the retail store.
So I noticed that you got a 703 number, and I presume that you live in the Washington, D.C. area. So I went to my local Giant the other day, and I keep a pretty close watch on my grocery bill. But I noticed that my $100 worth of groceries that I had bought for the week that 6 months ago cost me $100 was now about $108. Same things. I buy the same things over and over and over again. Again, this is going to mean that things are going to be getting more expensive at the grocery store.
They are going to be getting more expensive at the grocery store. So I live in the Manassas, Virginia area. There's a Food Lion right nearby. It's a retail food chain. And what I was spending $70 for, I am now spending about $94, $95 for.
Yeah. Well, I'm a Giant guy. Since we're both in the D.C. area, you know what I'm talking about.
I do. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, so I noticed that my stuff was about $8 or $12 more expensive. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm a very liberal user of their gasoline discount, that for every $100 that you spend, you get 10 cents off. So I will sort of hoard my gas discount and take. We have one car that's very fuel efficient. I drive a hybrid, and the other is a bit of a gas pig. So we use the discount on the bigger vehicle that runs, by the way, the 93. So you know what we're paying for that stuff right now.
Oh my God, paying a lot for it. But what I will tell you, though, is that I wrote this op-ed for a specific reason, is that small businesses can help the economy keep moving forward. Now, while the economy is challenged with higher prices, we're still growing at around 2 to 2.5%. But with small businesses are 99.9% of the companies in the U.S. So what I suggested in this op-ed is that the federal government rethink permitting and regulatory compliance in a different way. Right now, from my perspective, I think that permitting and regulatory compliance are built for the larger companies, and there needs to be a structure primarily for the smaller companies for permitting and regulatory compliance. That will lower costs, and it will help those companies be more decisive in times of stress that we're in like now.
How did we get to this point? And I'm going to use a historical analogy. You know, in the 1930s, they built the Empire State Building in about 2 years. They built the first Yankee Stadium from the time they broke ground till the time that they had the ballpark built. They built it in 11 and a half months. I mean, now a project of that magnitude, an Empire State Building, would take 5 or 6 years. Building a ballpark takes 7 or 8 years from the time of the permitting and all these things. How did we get to this point?
That is a great question. So the answer is, in this country, we've got to act on what we know versus what we think. And more often than not, when regulations or permitting structures are developed, we have, what we think instead of what we know. We need to act on science, not on opinion. Science is what will get us there. The reason why the Empire State Building and the original Yankee Stadium were built within that time frame was because we didn't have all these complex structures that we have now. Now, to build a commercial building or to build a residential subdivision, it's just the permitting, the regulations, the costs are outrageous. And the extended time is more cost, and that's outrageous.
And don't get me wrong, I'm all for making sure that the environment is protected and that we do our due diligence, Dan, that we check things and we make sure that we're not disrupting protected natural habitat and the like. But it just seems like there are so many hoops and so many appeals and so many different levels of regulatory reform to go through sometimes. You sometimes say, well, didn't that already get approved at the planning commission or at the zoning board? No, but it's got to go to the next commission, and then it goes to the county board, and then it needs staff approval. It just seems like it's an awfully long process.
It is an awfully long process, but I want to agree with you. I am all for clean air, all for clean water, and a safe environment. But there's a point by which you've got to say we're going to act on science or sound science, and we're going to utilize that to build permitting process and regulatory processes. Beyond that, we can't say we're not going far enough, because every time we do that, we're over-permitting, we're over-regulating, and we're stopping economic growth. We're bringing it to a halt.
Dan Varroney joins us. He is an author at Real Clear Politics. His article, While Small Business Matters More as Iran Drives Its Cost Even Higher. We will continue our conversation with Dan after these messages. SiriusXM 146, 115 Eastern Time.
The headlines that impact your home. This is Road Dog Trucking Radio with Dan Roden.
Dan Varroney joins us from Real Clear Politics. He has written a very thought-provoking article looking at why small business matters as Iran drives the cost higher. So let's talk about this specifically from the trucking and freight angle. A lot of small businesses depend on trucking. As we were talking with Avery Brooks from FTR Intel a little while ago, most of the big firms, they can fuel surcharge this, they can pass it along to their customers as well. But for small trucking companies, higher diesel prices mean that it can cause a cash flow problem. How do you survive?
So I think that from my perspective, that's one of the biggest challenges, is how do you survive in this kind of environment? So what most people don't know is that small businesses operate on a very tight cash flow. So in my book that came out a few months ago, Rethinking Economic Growth, how small business can help consistently grow the economy, I had interviewed 35 small business owners and surveyed 200 other small business owners. And one of the things they talked about was certainty, and the other thing they talked about clearly was surviving in a high-cost environment and managing cash flow. It's very difficult in this environment to manage cash flow. So in some cases, people will have to refuse to take the work because they can't afford to pay for the fuel, or they can, as best as possible, negotiate rates by which customers can pick up the additional costs.
But you mentioned this issue of certainty. There's not a lot of certainty when oil keeps going from $115 a barrel down to 98, then back up to 113 in this whipsaw effect we've seen over the last couple of weeks.
There clearly is no certainty, right? And uncertainty can slow down any economy. That's why the economy is slower. And I think the administration has got in its sights, on the basis of the president's speech Wednesday evening, to bring this conflict to a close in the next 2 to 3 weeks. I think that's essential for a number of reasons. First and foremost, I think small businesses need the help. They need the help through certainty. They need the help through lower and more reasonable fuel costs and energy costs. Third, they need the help through...
Go ahead, Dan. Go ahead.
And then in addition to that, they need certainty through more streamlined regulatory and permitting processes that are geared more towards small businesses.
Todd would like to join the conversation. Todd, go ahead. Go ahead, Todd. You're on the air.
Okay. Hey, I got a question, not so much for the company owners, the mom and pops, but more for the drivers. Fuel's gone up. Gas has gone up. As you guys were saying, groceries has gone up. Now, for an hourly driver, I drive tanker trucks, and I work a lot of overtime. But we are exempt on the no tax on overtime. Why is that? Because when everything's going up, an extra $1,000 from the government in the driver's pocket would be very nice. And I don't know how the exemption works for, like, paid by the load or by the mile, but I do know the hourly, we're exempt. Why is that?
Dan, go ahead.
I The answer is I don't know. From my perspective, the tax on overtime had broad application. So I'm a little surprised to hear that. But I will look into that.
Okay, because it's no skin off of the company's back. I mean, they've already paid us the overtime. You know what I'm saying? It's not like they owe us more money. It's the government that says, no, sorry, you can't get the exemption. Or, you don't qualify for no tax on overtime. And being that I work for a company that's got probably 50, 60, 70 trucks, but it's a family-owned company, and it just seems odd that we're all out there and then we don't get any bonus, for the income tax. And I just wondered why that is. Because like I said, with the price of everything going up, the last person I think the government would want to screw would be the driver.
Well,
if we quit,
you are essential. Yep.
Yeah, and I thought maybe somebody would know or whatever, but that just baffled me when we got the letter saying that no, you're exempt. You can't get that. So that was my question.
Thanks for the call, Todd. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Todd. Dan, someone just handed this to me. Under the Fair Labor Standards Act, any drivers fall under the motor carrier exemption, and that covers interstate commercial drivers, most trucking roles. They're not legally entitled to overtime pay, time and a half in the first place. Oh, my God, this is ridiculous. Someone needs to look into this. I had no idea until that trucker just mentioned that.
Well, there you go. I mean, I think it's been part of the Fair Labor Standards Act going back to the 1930s, maybe. I mean, this is a perennial issue that you hear the drivers complain about because it comes back to the issue they say that they're not being treated with respect.
Yep. Yeah, it's most drivers don't get overtime under federal law, so a tax break on overtime doesn't reach them. And essentially what it does is it skips the longest hours that are put in by these drivers. That's absolutely unfortunate.
Walk us through how higher prices, because we talked about fertilizer, but it is not just diesel fuel or fertilizer. It's other chemicals. It's DEF. It's all sorts of things that are used by the trucking industry every day, but they are moving all sorts of related items that are made with petrochemicals that are going to be getting more expensive.
So essentially what you have right now is that all of the input costs are facing higher cost pressures. So whether they be chemicals, whether they be fertilizer, it's the cost of making it, it's the cost of transporting it. Where the higher cost comes in is the higher cost of transporting it because of the higher fuel cost. And as you know, so what most people don't understand is it becomes the higher cost of rail, the higher cost of shipping, the higher cost of truck transportation. All these are input costs that feed into higher chemical and higher fertilizer costs.
I couldn't help but notice, and this is a logistics question, that the rail industry has been very aggressive now seeking market share against the trucking industry because the rail industry has been touting its fuel advantage over trucking. And again, is this one area, Dan, where you think that if the trucking industry were to lose market share to rail, that maybe the cost would not jump as high as what we're fearful of?
You know, I'm not quite sure that, in fact, is the case. And what's interesting to me is that I'm thinking that for companies that will rely exclusively on rail, they'll have to build rail sidings, and there's an expense to that. Where with truckers, there's a fairly steady stream. I mean, there's a process in place. It's not quite as easy to transform one set of material transportation rules onto another that easily.
I want to just pivot in the remaining couple minutes that we've got left. We saw the jobs numbers today Good numbers for the month of March, much better than expected. But are we seeing businesses, and can we anticipate that businesses might delay hiring, cut back, and especially if we get some sort of a increase with regards to a interest rate hike because of higher inflation, could we see the economy start to slow down into that dreaded stagflation level that many people fear?
Okay, a lot to unpack, but I'll do it quickly. First and foremost, Jerome Powell, the chair of the Federal Reserve, said this week, this is an energy price shock. The Federal Reserve is not anticipating increasing rates. He believes that when the price shock goes away, these prices will go down. So that would be the first response. The second response is some interesting data this week. The ADP private sector jobs report came out on Wednesday. 62,000 new private sector jobs created. 3/4 of those new jobs came from small businesses. So the growth right now in jobs is in small businesses. The numbers that came out today indicated that there was fairly widespread job growth up to and including 15,000 new jobs created in manufacturing, which I think is a very positive sign. There were 7,000 jobs, I believe, created in the transportation sector as well. So I think what we're seeing, despite the energy price shock, we're seeing jobs growth. My expectation is that when the energy price shock goes away, because of things like the big, beautiful law, that we're going to continue to see capital investment, and we'll see small businesses especially take advantage of the 100% expensing for plants and equipment, and we'll see more job growth as a result.
Dan, it's been great to talk with you. You've got a great article, and would certainly like to invite you on as a guest down the road as we continue the conversation about small businesses and the impact that they make, especially with regards to trucking. Really enjoyed the read and enjoyed the conversation.
Likewise, and look forward to coming back at some point.
Dan Varroney with Real Clear Politics. While small business matters more as Iran drives the cost higher.